Well, hello, and welcome to the MilVet Podcast. Your podcast hosts are Brendan Aronson, Tim Shaw, and Bo Higgins. We are military veterans, entrepreneurs, and investors. But most importantly, we strive to empower military service members, veterans, and their families. We believe that all veterans deserve a career that fires them up, a career in which you can learn, you can earn, and you can build a world class network. On this podcast, we interview civilian and military veteran leaders who are incredible founders, writers, thinkers, and investors. My primary goal is to inspire you to achieve great things. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the MilVet Podcast. I am your host, Bo Higgins, and I have the pleasure today to be joined by my friend Giles Walger, and we'll walk through his path and journey in a little bit. For those that may not be familiar with the MilVet provides an executive platform for veterans that are interested in getting into the private equity and venture capital world. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, jobs we have open, please check out themilvet.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can check out our podcast. You can see what upcoming events we might have where you can meet us in person. But we'd love to talk to you and share more about what the MilVet does for our veterans, as well as for companies that may want to hire veterans into executive roles. But today, it is, again, my pleasure to have Giles on the show with us. And Giles, welcome to the podcast, and let us know what you're doing these days, man. What's going on?
Oh, thanks, Bo. Appreciate the introduction and appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So I founded a company about a year and a half ago called OODAx. Obviously, prior service in the Marine Corps, so we share that background. But I joined, Amazon shortly thereafter through the Pathways program, which you were instrumental in being a part of. And then after that, the impetus to start my company came from a transition from Amazon and the regular Pathways program over to AWS. And I was working on mission engineering with AWS with a fantastic team. And that led me to where I am today. I worked for two small companies in the interim, Big Bear AI and Defense Unicorns. They were fantastic, but really found my niche with my own company. So I have 9 clients now. Absolutely love what I'm doing. I take that mission engineering approach to problems, solving warfighter pain points, and then getting those companies in front of the warfighter intelligence community for proof of concept and accelerated path to contracting. So that's what I'm doing now. Love it, and love to see my clients win. Sometimes I'm their first call, right? It's, instead of calling their wives, I'll check in on them like, hey, did you call your wife yet? They're like, oh, not yet. I thought you'd love to hear it. I was like, yeah, but call your wife.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that and your journey, because like I've learned on this podcast, everybody's journey to where they are is different. And again, I think a lot of our guests can learn from the folks we bring on as they're going through their journeys from the military or they've been out for a while looking for their next career. But let's back it up real quick. What was the impetus for you to join the Marine Corps in the first place? What was the background for you to get in the military?
Oh yeah, it was to serve. Passionate about serving. Trying something that was challenging. I think every viewer can attest to just having some internal drive, but then a higher purpose as well. Frankly, I was on my way out, and then 9/11 happened because I didn't necessarily see warfare in the future, and then blessed to serve with so many Marines and learn from them over the course of my career. It was just fantastic. I stay in touch with a bunch of those leaders and young Marines. I learned more from the young Marines than I than I ever did, from a textbook. So yeah, it was a
Yeah,
great
it is
experience.
definitely all about the people in the
Yeah.
Marine Corps. It's a people business, and I think everything out there that we do is a people business. When you come down to it, it's your network and the people out there. I mean, what was the? I guess I would ask you this. What was your decision to leave the Marine Corps? I mean, how did you come to that decision to transition, and what was your transition like?
Yeah, it was mostly personal because I was going through, where I had gone through a divorce, and so I'd hit that time. in service where, I didn't necessarily feel like I had a whole lot left to give the institution. I was, my kids were in Wilmington. I had to prioritize, my family at that point in time, and my kids, and they're all doing great. My oldest son is at UNC, started this year, so we did some things right. Those, all three of my kids are, older kids are doing great. But that was really the impetus for making the decision. I had some great Marines along the way, wanted to stay with them. Still some friends, obviously, that are still in, but yeah, it was the right time. After the periods of war that we all participated in. So that was the reason. My transition was fantastic. When I went through the transition program, I really thought, I don't want to be like the rest of the guys I was going through the transition program with. They all wanted, government service jobs or contracting jobs, and I wanted to get as far away from the defense world as possible. So Amazon Pathways was the right fit for me. It's maybe not the right fit for everybody. I fell in love with Amazon's culture. I bought into it. We just had this huge impact. I did think there was like massive change during COVID. I saw the writing on the wall there. I was working nights. I wound up getting remarried, and my wife was like, "Nah, you got to leave." So I resigned on a Friday, and because I was a senior ops, there was some opportunity there to find other work at Amazon. So on Monday, I had a new job with Amazon over at AWS to help launch this really cool, team with a guy named Jim Kagi, who's the current Assistant Secretary of War for Mission Capabilities. And so we built this incredible team, mostly remote, cleared prior service members, and just solved incredibly hard problems for the warfighter. And that got me where I am today, back in defense technology.
That's awesome. Well, it's a great story too. I mean, it's that's where our paths really did overlap, was with the military pathways program, and you were a shining star in the program there at Amazon with us for quite some time, and it was great to see you do well there. But it was also great to see you be able to pivot from the operations side over into the AWS side, and have such success there, which really probably was a more of a better precursor for what you're doing now, just to learning that side of things. I would, for all our veterans out there, I mean, what do you look back at, your success in Amazon, within operations and at AWS? I mean, what are linkages you brought from the military that made you successful at Amazon and beyond?
Yeah, I think Matta said it really well, and I try to convey this a lot of because it does convey to whether it's Amazon senior leaders. I think what every military member brings, and I think this will, it conveys in the PE world as well, is the three C's, right? Caring, conviction, and competence. So you have to be willing to start over again when you transition and learn the business. That was true in Amazon. That's true in the business I do today. You have to care about what you're doing, and you have to have the conviction to see things through. I think there's a fourth piece, which really resonates with senior leaders, is the ability to communicate cogently, to get to the point and communicate clearly. Um, Claricity might be clearly maybe a made up word that you hear sometimes, but I think that cogent communication is key.
No, I think that's great. Simple words, but I think very true words when it comes to what translates over. If you have those as core values or core principles, it's going to lead to your success. Because again, and for those that don't maybe know it, what did you see as big difference between being in Amazon in operations and then go on to AWS? Because obviously that it's a pretty significant, it's a different world. I mean, they're run differently, a different leadership, although under the Amazon umbrella. That really is a pretty massive career pivot. I mean, it's not typical to do that. How
Yeah,
did
you're
you do
right.
it? And maybe what were some of the things that you saw that were different, the same, going from kind of the warehouse world to the tech world?
Yeah, you're right. So a lot of folks don't, know the background of AWS, but essentially, Amazon basically sold how we do business in Amazon through AWS. They're all managed services, all core, aside from the networking and the storage and infrastructure. It's all open source software that is, basically customized as a managed service. And so understanding that as a background and coming from, big Amazon, it was a transition into the level of competence and the things to be competent on, right? So it goes back to those three C's, demonstrating that caring for the engineers and the business teams that I was working with. We were in mission engineering, so we were on kind of that region services line chart in AWS. Then obviously understanding those line charts and where people's passions and equities were. And then lastly, that conviction, right? We indexed on the Warfighter. We worked back from the customer and that Warfighter's pain point to deliver things that were seemed impossible. Our first challenge was to accelerate the delivery of Project Maven to the edge for senior leaders in DoD and the DepSecDef. Like, how do you do that? Right? And so everybody said it's going to take 2 years, and we did it. The first circuit we landed in 3 months, and then we had a solution, to 10x throughput and reduce the latency by over 50% within 6 months. And so the warfighter's like, grinning, right? You guys solved our pain point. So we immediately had traction to solve other problems. And when you solve people's pain points, right? Whether that's in PE, as folks transition to the private equity world, or that's working with a defense tech startup or any manner of business. If you solve their pain and understand what that pain point is, identify the true lighthouse customers that are going to fund the thing that you're building, right? Yeah, then you'll quickly move through that diffusion of innovation from lighthouse customer to early adopters through the entire spectrum of customer. And so our team did that with Department of War and the intelligence community, and then being able to do that now, that's just a passion of mine.
That's awesome. No, that's some great insights. And I'd be curious, after having that kind of success at one of the biggest companies in the world, you made another pivot from that to decide like to bet on yourself and do it alone. What was that process like? What was that decision like? I mean, what led you to say, okay, I've either had enough of Amazon, because it can be a grind. I mean, it has its pros, but it is a tough place to work as well. What was the decision point for you to leave big corporate America and decide to move on and do something on your own? And kind of how did that transpire?
Well, sure. That's a great question, Bo. I going through transition, like I always, I had this entrepreneurial kind of like bent. I always knew I wanted to do it. One of the things, maybe it's imposter syndrome or whatever, right? You I didn't have an MBA. I don't know how my transition in my service vernacular translates to the business world. Um, it does. Like any veteran out there will succeed in business if that's what they want to do. And for me, I wanted to start my own business. Um, Amazon just created that platform for me to be able to like basically learn the business world and all the terminology that you need to understand to be successful, and then apply it in my own business. And so I adopted the same mindset of solving problems with AWS Mission Engineering. We would take small companies with us and demonstrate to the warfighter what was the realm of the possible. And so you're basically building a business case for this new capability that nobody, as Bezos said, the customer may not even know what they want, right? Um, the beautiful thing about the Department of War, the intelligence community, is the guys like us understand how programmatically we can solve problems. So if you have a technology that bridges two programs, well, that might be a little bit harder to sell. CEOs don't necessarily understand that, but we know how to engage with the program officers and the offices rather, and senior leaders to be able to navigate that process. And so, those are the two key personas to be able to earn trust and deliver outcomes for. And so that's why I felt I could transition and start my own business. I understood it. I understood how to run a business from my time. And frankly, what I didn't know is I knew that coming out of the Marine Corps, right? As you said, you transition from Amazon to AWS. It's a major transition. It's like going from the Marine Corps to the Air Force, right? You go from the grind and the grit and to the country club. And so AWS was a different place.
It sounds like in some ways, that AWS was your own MBA, right? I mean, you had a hands-on, like in-person MBA experience where you were building businesses, you saw all pieces of it, you had to manage all pieces of it, which set you up for success when you decided you wanted to do it on your own, right? I mean, you got
Yes.
to see small businesses that were trying, were founders and startups and trying to be part of this ecosystem, and hopefully, took the best pieces of that in a real world laboratory. In many ways, truly a laboratory that as they were trying to, push, sell you their technology, that you could use their individual technologies, and you got to see all of that, which is great. So
Yes.
I think it is, like I said, I looked at that as like a real world incubator that you learn from as a kind of hands-on MBA program. And did you have a vision of what you wanted to do when you left AWS? So you kind of see something in particular, say, okay, I've been doing this for a while, and Amazon's AWS is great, but I can do this on my own, and here's a problem I want to solve? Or was there a specific path? I mean, usually those paths get a little, it's never a straight line. But what did you like think you were going to do, and maybe what did it turn into?
Sure. Well, so I left AWS and I worked for those two small companies. And one of the biggest problems, the biggest pain points that we have right now are in the U.S. government are being solved at top secret level. And so, one of the hard things for small companies is to be able to hold those clearances. And obviously, I had a pretty high level clearance, and so I wanted to work with companies that could handle that. And I've actually learned that you could start your own business, your own LLC, work with another company, and as long as you're working on contract to solve their problems, they can hold your clearance. And so a lot of veterans may not know that or know pathways to do that, but there's usually some small companies within their own service that like to solve problems that way. And so I was blessed to be able to do that. Now, work with a bunch of companies that are trying to solve incredibly hard problems. That was a real blocker. It's hard for some of these smaller companies that may not have a contract, or they may have a contract with the IC, but the IC may not want program managers or BD people to be on a contract for cleared personnel. Because so the different agencies, the different entities inside the government really have cracked down on that. So it's something for transitioning service members to be aware of as they're looking for that next opportunity, and whether or not they can do it on their own at the level that they want to do it. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense for sure. And again, when you left though, I mean, did you have a vision of what you wanted your own company to become? Because you're doing a lot on your own. I mean, you obviously have worked for companies, but I mean, did you know what you kind of saw your value add as like what was your sales pitch, right? What was your elevator pitch?
Yeah,
Like, okay, I'm leaving
yeah.
AWS and I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that's a great. Mission engineering, right? With the approach to mission engineering, there's a guide for mission engineering that a lot of folks probably not aware of. That DOW, the Office of Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering, has put out, and it is, how do you accelerate technology, right? And very simply in vernacular that everyone will understand in the commercial world, it's product market fit, but that is not how the government uh, looks at problems, right? So you have to understand the product, the mission, right, and that warfighter behind the mission, and then the system, right? There's always going to be a legacy system, whether it's hardware or software, usually hardware with software. So, running that system that is going to have to be integrated in. And so it goes back to understanding the different personas. You have to understand that mentality of product, mission, system fit, and then which personas and let's start with the service, like which service owns that legacy system as prime, right? And then as the prime service, like sponsoring that legacy system, and then which contractors, right? Which prime contractor actually works on it? Which program office does it fit in? And now you're identifying by starting to like develop this engagement strategy of how to solve problems. And so we did this very well at AWS Mission Engineering. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to have the success we had. And so we had a small team, all the program managers, and I worked with all the program managers. They worked for me. Had to work with the product team, had to work with engineers, had to work with the account teams, had to work with the business team and the strategy team. So I understood all facets of it, and being able to do that and put it all under one roof with OODAx, that was the problem I wanted to solve. Because now I can go to small companies and say, all right, this is where you fit. It's not just the SIBR. Let's go after these OTAs, and this is who we need to partner with. This is the strategy we need to take to get our proof of concept in front of the warfighter to kind of build that business case, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so you knew how to, connect the company with the government and help them work through all the hurdles, for lack of a better word.
I lost you on my end, Bo.
Translator, the broker, I think the middleman, but in a lot of ways, maybe the middleman to do all the things they don't understand. You could make an easy button for them to make that happen. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And the defense tech industry is full of grift, right? It's full of people that overpromise, and whether that's dib partner, or that is, so defense industrial base to, interpartner, or that is to the government. And the last thing that you want to do is go in front of the government and not deliver, right? Because at the end of the day, like, we need to index on the warfighter. So over the course of time, a lot of our systems integrators have moved to DC, right? They've moved to the national capital region. So it is anathema to just assume that they understand the warfighter's true problems out in the combatant commands. Well, it's gotten even more interesting in the last, in this administration, that's moving a lot faster than people really expected. And OTA funding is a viable option for small companies to cross that valley of death, right? It's the first valley with their prototype. That second valley where they're actually trying, and they've got to start, once they won that first contract with, it might be a SIBR, right? The old school vernacular is you gotta sell your SIBR, right? You gotta bring money to that SIBR. Well, now they can also use OTA funding, right? The aperture is wide, and it should be easier for companies with compelling technology to cross faster. Only now there's more competition, right? So it's helping those companies understand the opportunity, where they need to focus their time and resources, right? That essential piece, right, is the money. And for all of these companies taking venture capital or private equity, like you've got to understand this process, or your VC is going to turn to a sunshine friend, right? Where, they have, fear of no exit, right? In addition to fear of missing out, right? If they can't exit, or they invested at too high of a level, what's that next series look like? And so there's a real problem for a lot of VCs and a lot of small companies to have, people like yourself, like myself, that understand how the government buys, but more importantly, like how we're going to take that technology and solve that warfighter pain point and influence that decision on buying. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense, and it's a complicated and complex system anyone that can bring clarity to it or help the smaller companies that may not know how to navigate it. I mean, it's a hugely needed resource, obviously, in what you're doing. To kind of pivot my line of questioning a little bit, but there's clearly major investment right now going on in the defense tech sector as a whole. I mean, look at the news and you can see what's going on globally. I mean, it's a massive time for defense tech. If and but I defense tech is such a broad term as well for veterans that want to get into the space, defense tech in general. Do you have any advice or insights of like, okay, I see, I mean, I'm come from the military. I know kind of about, defense. I've been on the Marine Corps side of it, or the Army or Air Force or Navy side of it. I mean, what is a way that you would say is the best way for someone to pivot in a broad sense into the defense tech community? I mean, obviously, if
Sure.
you go and be a contractor, the Boeings of the world. I mean, yes, certainly, but beyond that, in the more smaller, maybe VC PE space, what are some advice you would give to folks that are interested in getting into that space?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bo. I think the first thing, like, as veterans transition, the last thing you want to do is transition to a company that's not going to succeed or doesn't have a chance at being acquired or exiting, really, right? And so, my philosophy is, if I transition, I want to look at a company and, for veterans, they want to plant their seed at that company for a year. And I would say the first thing is, do they have commercial traction, right? Who's buying their product? So is it truly dual use, or is it just the defense community, intelligence community, the government? Because if it's just the government, it's going to be really hard. The government is a hard customer, right? Whether we're bridging continuing resolutions, but look at the company's product. Does it have commercial traction? Then look at that product mission system fit. Does that veteran understand it, right? Because then they know where they can bring value. If they don't understand it, right? Let's say it's a product that fits in between two program offices. That's a lot harder to sell, right? Because, hey, I want you to take the risk. No, I want you to take the risk, right? And then both of these guys never meet in the middle, right? Because that's the way the military is, right? They're competing against each other, right? Because then you got to go one level higher and talk to that senior leader that's in charge of perhaps two program offices that don't talk to each other and convince them, hey, this is a product that solves that problem. We need to invest in it because if that senior leader does do that, right, the way they bridge that funding is with R&E funding, right? So let's say it's the Marine Corps. Now it's going to McTissa or McWill, right? So now you've got a third persona, not just those two program offices. But we've got this technology that's being developed here, and we got to transition it into one of these program offices. So understanding what that product mission system fit is and who the actual program is that this technology is going to land in, right? Because the hardest thing, the second hardest, the first hardest thing we talked about was the CEOs understanding this problem, right? The second thing that those CEOs need to understand is selling to that program office is going to be just as hard to every other program office within the Marine Corps, and then to every other service. Like nobody inside the DoD or DOW, is incentivized to say, yeah, what the Marine, in this example, what the Marine Corps did in transitioning this technology, that was the right move, and we need to scale this, right? Unless you have a major personality driving that. And so a second question to that product mission system fit is, okay, you've landed in the Marine Corps. All right, what other traction do you have? What does it look like in the Navy, in the Air Force? What's our go-to-market strategy look like there? Do we have any traction in the IC? Are we going to prioritize going international after that? So there's ITAR and there's EAR, there's other bureaucratic processes to nail in the interim, right? If you're going to do that, or are we going after state and local contracts? Because commercial they're not going to hire necessarily a veteran to solve the commercial strategy, right? They're bringing us in for what we know and how we can solve that DOW, that government strategy. And so those would be kind of the first order of questions that I would ask a company to really understand if it was a good fit for me. Those are the same questions I ask when I take on new clients. Does the company understand this? Right. Typically, I sign a client for a 2-year contract because that's typically how long it takes. Now, I've got clients that win contracts in under a year, right? And because they take advice, they listen, right? They learn, right? It's like 3 C's all over again from the CEO's perspective, right? They care because they want to win, right? And they communicate well. So they have the 3 C's and the communication piece. And from that's really where I can help them as well. And I think a lot of veterans, as they transition, if they want to get into defense tech, if they really use those 3 C's and communicate clearly, they're going to be successful. But that's how I would focus on really good companies that are out there, and then reach out to guys like Bo or Giles and say, hey, I need some advice.
Sounds easy. You make it sound easy. I mean, and I would ask kind of one follow up to that. I mean, obviously, if you had come right out of the Marine Corps, you couldn't have done what you're doing now right away. You had the experience of doing that at AWS in particular. How can someone gain some of that experience, maybe if they want to get into defense tech? Like, what are any thoughts on that as we kind of get ready to kind of close things up? What are for folks that want to get into the industry in general? Are there any ways, any resources, books, podcasts?
Oh
What are the
yeah,
things,
man,
tools
that's a
out
great
there
one.
for folks that you would recommend that they want to get
Yeah.
into this space? They're interested but don't know where to start.
Yeah, that's great. Shield Capital has Mission Matters. Like that's a definite listen. As far as podcasts go, Firestorm, Dan Magee, and that team has Drone Wars. Definite listen. Um, there's a couple others actually. I'm gonna bring up my app real quick. But you know, as far as books go, I think it's mostly like the commercial books that help the most. That Amazon reading list, that good Marine Corps reading list when we were in service. Well, there's create one for each individual. I Good to great is probably where to start. There's a bunch of others that are out there that'll help, not specifically for defense tech, but if they can apply a great reading list to defense tech, then they're going to be successful. I I would read Sham Sankar's latest. Actually, it's his first book. Um, and then let me get back to podcasts really quickly because I think that's a great Mission Matters. We covered Drone Wars. The Optimized podcast is a good one. Breaking the Standard is a good one. Cogs of War from War on the Rocks is really good. And that's those are really the ones that I listen to. I think, obviously, Tim would want us to stay advancing VC if they want to get into VC, right? The Milvet podcast, you guys have had, like, Bo, you've had some incredible guests on, right? Um, so I would start there, and then I would, how do you do it? Find a mentor. I would, and I encourage every veteran. The the biggest opportunities that I have right now are from my network, and I took on a client pro bono. And I started doing this because, I was like, hey, I want to help veterans and Gold Star families, and I want to help them with their business. And like the biggest opportunity I have right now is with a female founder, Gold Star wife, former DARPA data scientist, former White House data scientist, former Army intel officer. Like the best story ever, right? With niche technology that solves incredible pain points. And so I don't think that would have happened to me. And I don't think that happens to people like you. Good things happen when you do great things, right? And, that just is true in my case. I think for everyone listening, if they can, pay it forward, give back to the veteran community, tell your story on the podcast with Bo, like get out there, make change, and just do it, and it will happen.
I love it, brother. That is some great advice. Just do it like Nike, man. That's it. And again, I can't foot stomp enough. You know, the need to find a mentor as you're transitioning, to do the networking. I mean, I say this all the time. Your network is your net worth, right? So, invest in your network. That's what's going to get you a job. That's when it's going to get you the connections you need. But to your point, also pay it forward, man. For the give it back to the guys that need a little help, that are transitioning, and that's what hopefully podcasts like this are helpful with. And I know you spend a lot of time doing that as well, Giles. So thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I think you shared some great insights for our audience, and look forward to seeing you hopefully very soon, in the next few weeks. And again, thanks for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Definitely. It's great to see you, Bo. Best of the team.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. For more content, follow us on Instagram @themilitaryvet or on LinkedIn. Join us at an upcoming event or learn more on our website, themilvet.org. Feel free to email us directly at leadership@themilvet.org. Thank you so much and take care.